Welcome, everyone. Good boy, Tucker. This is learning at its most fun.
Thank you everyone for joining us for another practice management webinar. My name is Jack and I'm one of our trainers and product knowledge experts here at Redtail. And today we have Zoë Meggert with us to teach us something new and something that I think you all are going to get a lot of use out of today. So Zoë, thank you so much for joining us. And if you wouldn't mind, would you just share a little bit about yourself for all of our newer friends or people who maybe haven't had an opportunity to see you speak before?
Yes, absolutely. So, and just so everyone knows, I don't love super formal presentations. So I have a deck that I will share, but please interject with questions. Like, let's make this a conversation. Let's make it fun. Hi, my name is Zoë Meggert. Thank you so much for having me here. I did one of these last year as well, and I just think it's such a fun crowd. So I was super pumped when you guys invited me back. But today we're going to be going over pillar content and how to create scalable content strategies. And we'll go over this in presentation too, but I am the founder of Perfectly Planned Content. We founded the business in 2016. It was just me for a long time, a couple years. And then we kind of slowly started adding team members and contractors, and we focus on boutique content marketing strategies for RIAs and financial advisor teams. So that looks like we have some DIY solutions that we just rolled out. We do marketing consulting for advisors who want just like a done with you solution. Then we have fully outsourced solutions as well. So I know we just kind of talked about it, but I'm from Northwest Arkansas right now, from Michigan originally. I've moved around quite a bit. You might see in the chat, I've lived in Iowa for a little while. Best ice cream ever, according to you.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yep. So I have lived in a lot of different spots. Right now we're in the Ozarks. I am married, have 2 dogs, and we had twin daughters. They're turning 3 in June, which feels crazy to say, Charlotte and Piper.
Oh. And Charlotte and Piper are excellent. They're very good girls who love Frozen, so they're already a gold star for me.
Yep, they're very well behaved, minus maybe we did have some coloring on the walls incidents this past week. So
they're just creative. That's all.
Yeah, they're just creative. That's a good way to reframe that.
Well, Zoë, I'm super excited to hear, especially about the content creation, because I do know I talk to my clients about this. And I personally struggle with this. I am not great on social media, nor am I to like reaching out or to having a presence online at all. And unfortunately, that's just becoming more and more important, especially for upcoming generations and appealing to them. So this is, I think, hugely valuable. Definitely get this out to anyone who you think needs to see it. But Zoë, you're more than welcome to share your screen. And
okay, yeah, let's do it. Let's dive in. And guys, I'm working with 2 desktops today using my husband's setup. So
in the meantime, right. Kevin, happy birthday to your child, because he turns.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kevin. That's exciting. Okay, are we looking at the presentation, right?
Yes, and it looks fantastic.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna dig into pillar content, how to create a content strategy that scales with your business. I'm really excited about this. This is a topic that I've been hammering home. If you've seen videos on social media recently, listen to me on any podcast interviews, I have been hitting this hard, and it's because I think it's really important for advisors who are wearing so many hats as it is to quiet their marketing strategy and figure out ways to build content in a way that isn't exhausting, right? And doesn't take up that much time, so that then you can continue to market and generate leads in an effective way that moves with you and it doesn't feel like a constant time and resource suck. So I'm super excited about this topic. If I go, there we go. So we just kind of introduced myself casually, but hi, I'm Zoë Meggert. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, founder of Perfectly Planned Content. We've been doing this since 2016. We've worked with advisors for that full length of time, and we nearly exclusively work with financial advisors, typically fee only, and we do help some people like step away from our broker, lots of different options there. We focus on content strategies. So typically that's blog writing, web copy, SEO. We monitor Google Analytics for clients, social media, email marketing. Pretty much if it has something to do with writing, we touch it. That's kind of what I always say. So what our really main mission is to empower advisors to own their story and become their authentic selves and show up to run a business that they're really proud of and have their marketing reflect that. So we want people to really be able to connect with our advisors and have advisors feel like, gosh, I'm bringing in the clients who I'm jazzed to work with. I'm lighting up, they're lighting up, and the content is reflective of all of that collective experience. So That's a little bit about me and just the background of our firm, what we're all about. Today, again, what we're covering is pillar content. So this might be a new term, but you've likely heard about it. I saw an article recently, and I can send it to you for the follow-up too, in Kitsis, where an advisor wrote an article about how he uses pillar content. You might have heard it called hub and spoke content. Some people call it keystone content, but it's a very like trendy topic right now. And I think for a good reason, because advisors are spending so much time on their marketing. This is a fantastic way to reduce time spent, but maximize views and leads and all of that good stuff that we want our marketing to be. Hold on a second here. So then we're also going to talk about how to figure out what topics your pillars should be and how to repurpose and recycle those pillar topics that you're building so that you're creating different types of content and capturing more leads, again, with spending less time. So we'll just keep polls really casual. We won't do like formal answer because they're kind of open-ended questions. But if you want to drop in the chat, how much time on average are you spending on marketing each month? And for some reason, I can't see the chat, so let me know.
I will let you know, Zoe, I promise.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I was like, well, I'll feel bad if I ask questions, I can't see it. On average, how much time are we spending monthly on marketing? And I find that the answers really differ just like across the board. So I'm interested to hear.
Absolutely. I like Tina's answer right away. She was like, not enough. It seems to fall by the wayside, which is totally true because you are effectively having to do 2 jobs as an advisor now because you're having to market yourself most of the time and you're also having to focus on what you actually want to do. So
100%. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I often hear both sides of the spectrum, right? So it's either not enough or way too much. Like I'm overspending time on marketing and I need to like pare it down.
Mike and Krista said 10 hours or 8 to 10 hours, excuse me.
Okay.
And then
very solid range.
Opening a new branch, so a lot of time.
Okay.
Kimberly says twice a week she posts articles that are pre-approved by their parent company to Facebook, LinkedIn. Chip said 3 to 5 hours. Zach is saying 1 to 2 hours. That's scheduled, so it sounds like dedicated time. But it does tend to get pushed aside. Never mind. So I completely contradicted everything I just said.
That's okay.
Less than 5, not enough. Yeah, you're totally right, Zoe. It's either not enough or a lot of time.
Yep. And honestly, those 2 sides of the spectrum are very common. So we're going to talk a little bit about the problems advisors face with marketing, and time is the number one issue that I see. And it's because, right, advisors got into this business because they want to give advice and help their clients, and they're passionate about that. And unfortunately, marketing is almost a side effect of running a business, right? As are other things like HR, just general like operation management. And that can be really frustrating for an advisor or a team when you feel like, okay, I'm doing the thing that I love to do, but now I've got all this other stuff that needs to happen. And truth be told, I mean, the average blog post research has shown recently that it takes between 2 and 5 hours to write a blog from like idea iteration to publishing on your website. And so for people who feel like, man, this is a huge time sink, it is. You're not wrong. That's not in your head, right? So content creation is tough work and it is really time consuming. And that's the number one issue we're seeing. So there's just not enough hours in the day to get it all done and to still have an effective work-life balance and to do what you love doing in your firm. The second is a lack of know-how. And it's not to say that advisors aren't experts in their field and the topics they're doing. They definitely are, but they don't necessarily have marketing experience. And often their peers don't either, right? We all founded our businesses doing things we love. I founded my business because I loved writing, not because I was a marketing expert. You have to learn that kind of on the fly. And that can be a real frustration point and a sticking point for advisors who don't feel like they've got the continuing ed in marketing, or they just don't know what they don't know, right? And that can be confusing, frustrating, all of the above. And then finally, and this kind of ties into that, is a lack of support. I feel like there are a lot of marketing consultants that serve advisors, guilty as charged. I'm included in that bucket. But I do feel like if social media and written content, your entire digital footprint is so critical for you as an advisor, there just should be more resources for you, right? In order to learn how to do it and how to pull it off and to not feel totally overwhelmed by it. So they're just a couple of the pain points. I hope they resonate with you. I feel like those are the ones that I hear a lot in prospect meetings that come up. The solution to a lot of these, luckily, is going to be pillar content, which we're talking about today. Again, really excited about it. I'm excited to see advisors really thrive and dig into some of these deep pillars to help repurpose different types of content, and generate more leads for their business with less time spent. So what is pillar content? And when I kind of announced that I was doing this talk, I got several people emailed me ahead of time. And they were like, okay, but what is pillar content? And I was like, well, come to the presentation and you'll find out. But just a quick kind of blurb would be pillar content is long form. So whether it's blog posts, webinars, videos, podcasts, it's longer in length and it deep dives into a topic, right? So instead of going wide and covering 10 or 15 different topic ideas, it's the core questions that your A-list clients are asking. It's the big, tough, hairy problems that prospects are bringing to your door and scheduling calls with you to answer. And your core pillar content should be answering those questions. It really acts as the foundation of your marketing plan. And because it's long, it can be broken up. It can be used in different parts of your marketing funnel. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it's so easy to repurpose.
Oh, wow. So yeah, I really like the way that you put that, especially with the repurposement aspect of it, because nobody wants stale content, but you're totally right. You also don't want to sink time into something that you can't potentially recycle.
Absolutely. Yep. And what I find too is that, and we'll talk about this more as well, is that I think that advisors are often over creating because they're getting shoulded into having a blog, a podcast, all this different stuff. And so then it's like, okay, I should be doing all of this. And then it becomes like hit the panic button. And I have an example too in this deck of like my own experience with that. And then you kind of lose content, right? Because you've made so much of it and then it dies on the vine, right? Like you share it once and you're like, that was good. And then you don't use it again. And so it's a real frustration point for advisors who are like, okay, I'm just spinning my wheels. Like, what is the point of this? And that's kind of where pillar content can really make a difference.
Wow. Don't should yourself. We're going to come back. We are absolutely going to remind everyone of that multiple times today.
Yes, exactly. Stop shitting yourself. And we'll talk about all different ways of how to build pillar content, how to repurpose it easily. And ultimately the core of this, and we'll talk about this on this slide, is what sort of content lights you up. For pillar posts, it can be whatever you like best. And so I like to put it in 4 buckets, right? So there's blog posts that live on your site or public domain for anyone to access, webinars, but it could be video. I just use webinars as like a general video term. Podcasts, that can be audio or visual. A lot of people are doing video podcasts these days. I think they're awesome. And then I put ebooks, but I'm thinking this is offline content. So this is content that lives behind an email wall as part of your prospecting process or sales or client nurture process. So different long form written content, kind of 2 different buckets. And then I kind of included some ideal lengths here for pillar content as well, because I get this question a lot. You know, how long should a blog post be? What's the ideal length for a podcast? And the truth is, however long you want, right, is kind of part of it, however long it needs to be without having too much fluff. But if we're really looking at the data and the stats to have true pillar content that's driving traffic and ultimately, you know, SEO aside, working for your firm so that you can repurpose it, it needs to be longer. So for blog posts, we're thinking 2,000 plus words, the longer the better. For webinars or videos, think like 45 to 60 plus minutes. Like we're going deep, we're going long, we're trying to figure out how much information can I pack into this to be really high value add. Podcast episodes, I researched this before this meeting because podcasting is something I'm less familiar with, but I think it was like 27 minutes was the ideal podcast length, but the general range was between 20 and 45 minutes. So that's a good podcast length. And again, for your purposes, if you're going to be repurposing, longer the better for these pillar topics. Ebooks, these, and we'll kind of talk about how to use some of this like offline content. I like to see 3,000 plus words. So this is like, that's really bulky stuff that we're getting into, and it's branded for your firm. It's neatly designed. And again, hosted as like a lead gen tool, part of your prospecting or sales or client nurture process. So a couple different ways that we can build this out. And if you're shooting for like number goals of how long this content should be, sometimes I think these are good guidelines to keep in mind.
Oh no, Zoe, I think that's awesome. I'm curious, do you mind if we ask if anyone's already like using, or if anyone uses webinars more, if they already wrote an ebook, or because I'm curious where we're sinking our time. If it's more, or if you're spreading your time across all 4 of these already, and maybe now you're thinking we should consolidate. Because like you said, you don't need to be a jack of all trades. You can definitely pick one that you do the best.
Absolutely, yes. And I actually have a poll. So yeah, great minds think alike. What type of content is your firm creating right now? Drop it in the chat. I always like to see this as I went to school for creative writing, been a writer my whole life. So content for us is typically written content. But this year, and we'll talk about how to repurpose pillar posts, we've gotten more into video, webinars, things like that too. So yeah, let us know, what type of content are you guys creating? What's the time sink? And do you like it? Like, are you enjoying doing it?
Oh yeah, I would, even if you're not, even if you don't say specifically what you're doing, if you're blanketed in the feeling of, I hate doing all of it, feel free to put that in here. Or if you love
Yes.
doing all of it, that's fun too. Monthly newsletter, blog post month. Wow, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm curious, for those of you who are clicking like FMG and putting FMG in, what are you sending on FMG? Are you sending
Yes, is it
like an educational blast, or Zoe, what else in your experience have you sent through like
FMG has a content library, and I think they also have an email tool. And I think Snappy Kraken is similar. They've got like a whole suite of like ads, canned content, stuff you can build out campaigns with, stuff like that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Starting podcast soon. A lot of
congrats. We'll talk about my podcasting experience in a minute, because that's one of the examples I'm using.
Okay, blogs, and then starting with 2 times a week articles on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm curious, Kimberly, are you writing those articles, or are you like reposting them from other journals? Because I definitely have seen lots of advisors repost things, because that's also a great way to connect with people.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Social media is meant to be social.
Yeah.
Reposting and sharing content is fantastic.
Pre-approved by a parent, by your parent company. Got it.
Okay. Well, this is fantastic. And it sounds like it really runs the gamut. And honestly, I think that's how it should be, right? Like, no one person or one business owner or one firm is going to have the exact same niche target audience likes or wants in creating content. And so we should see a variety of content depending on who you're serving, what they're up to. I always kind of liken it to, look, I love to write blog posts, right? But if my ideal client was a busy professional, like a physician or someone who has had to commute long hours every day, they're not going to have time to sit down and read my blog post. So I need to have an audio reading of that blog, or a video, or some other element that they can sit in and kind of tune it in, plug it into their headphones and listen on their commute, or like when they're on the train or on their car speakers, whatever. Lots of different options there, and tailoring your pillar content to your ideal audience is a really good option too.
Oh, Zoe, I think that's a great point. And I actually have a follow-up question for you. And if you don't want to answer it right now, you don't have to.
No,
But
that's fine.
obviously, with the rise in other forms of social media, like we've seen with Instagram and specifically TikTok, with those like 3-minute blurb videos that are flooding the internet. Do you think those could potentially be a vehicle for content and connection, or do you think that
I do? And honestly, and I have this in a slide on repurposing content, so we will totally discuss it in depth. But I think that like the 3-minute or less short form video, studies have shown that it is the highest ROI that you can do right now for content creation, like in your marketing period. Which, for someone like me who maybe doesn't love getting on camera by myself, or like prefers more conversational things like this, you know, for many advisors I talk to, they're like, ugh, like I have to get on camera, like, I really don't want to. But there's so many different ways to do it. Right? Like, you can hop on Loom, you can use this deck, you can use an infographic that you're like voicing over. We see this on TikTok too, right? Where people have like the floating head like overlaid with the something behind them. Totally, lots of different options. And the nice thing about pillar content is that when you're building out this really robust concept and idea that are really the foundations and the pain points your clients are experiencing every day, you can then take that and break it into smaller chunks. And we'll kind of talk about like how to repurpose and recycle to make that shorter form content using pillars here in a second. But yeah, no, I totally am on the short form video train. I wasn't for a long time. And I just feel like between COVID and general studies on like attention span and marketing ROI, like it's a non-negotiable at this point. Like, people need to be on camera.
Oh, I love that you said that. I won't hold you up anymore.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I did want to address Melanie's question though. She did ask, obviously compliance can become an issue when posting anything anywhere. Will we talk about compliance a little later, or
we don't? And so we can dig into it now. Compliance can be tricky. And the nice thing with pillar content is I find you can work proactively with your compliance department, and you're not creating a bulk of content, you're creating deep content. So you can chat with them. And I've had compliance departments that, again, really run the gamut, right? So it's some people are like, I need to see a blog post, right? Like, I need to see it written down in order to approve it. We need to document sources. I've had compliance departments ask our writing team to make PDFs of the links that we're including in blog posts. It really just depends on the level of depth that they want to see. Other compliance departments will say, hey, do whatever, or like, it doesn't matter, just submit the video recording after the fact, you're good to go. So as long as you're communicating proactively and letting them know what's going to happen, you can develop a pretty strong process for this pillar content. And then as far as recycling or repurposing goes, that is also part of the conversation, right? So we have these 5 core topics and pieces. What can we say? What can't we say? Like you might find, I've had compliance departments where SRI or some sort of ethical investing is like a core foundational aspect of an advisor's business. And compliance is like, the SEC will flag that. So if we're going to do it, here are the fail safes I need to see in place. Like we need to have more documentation, more internal linking. But that's a good conversation to have because it's just protecting you for later. So instead of viewing compliance as like the enemy of your marketing, really getting them on the line and figuring out, okay, how can we work together to make this work? Because their job is to protect you and your job is to market the firm, right? And so I find that that works best. And sometimes a marketing consultant can even help facilitate that conversation if it's feeling tricky.
Zoe, that was amazing. That was
I hope it was helpful.
All your
let me know if you've got follow-ups.
But wow, that was a really good way to put it, because I personally also tend to view compliance as kind of the enemy, or like the Great Wall of China that you have to climb over. But in reality, we are all China, and the Great Wall of China is protecting us. So,
yep, they're there for a reason. They serve a purpose.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm so sorry. Continue, Zoe. Thank you for.
No, yeah, you are fine.
Compliance.
Yeah. So now we're going to dig into how to find your pillar topics. And this might tie into the compliance conversation too, right? Sure. Again, going through and figuring out what those core questions are that clients are asking you, what prospects are really needing to know more about. Compliance may have some insight as well, and the best way to frame that in a compliant way. And that's a good question to bring up. So I always like to kind of go for these 3 items when you're brainstorming pillar topics. It's a couple different things, and you can get fancy. You can look at your Google SEO, Google Analytics dashboard, GA4 if you haven't moved to it. It's coming, move to the dashboard. It's new and it looks much better. It's more user-friendly. But you can pull like what topics are already ranking on my site. You can run a search on Ubersuggest or SEMrush to see what keywords people are searching for and finding you with. That's a good option. But I also like to say, go back to the basics, right? Let's listen to your client meeting recordings. Go and figure out, okay, did I record it in Zoom, Google Meet, whatever, read through the transcript. You're going to see some themes because at the end of the day, your clients have some sort of consistent thread running through them, even if it's not, they're all physicians or I only work with lawyers. It could be, wow, they're all really worried about leaving a legacy. Like they want to make an impact, or they're concerned that they're not going to be able to retire, or they've got aging parents, or their kids are headed to college. What's the through line or the thread that you're hearing again and again? And that's probably a pillar content topic idea that you need to go deep in because people are asking the question again and again. If you do that and you're like, gosh, like I'm just not finding anything, like this isn't a gold mine, people are happy, like go to the next option. I say opt for a survey, and I get a lot of pushback from our consulting clients on this because they don't want to bother their clients, right? They're like, I don't want to send out another silly survey. Like, I don't know how to incentivize it. Make it short. Surveys can be 3 questions, like 3 to 5. Super quick. Use a free tool like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or something of that nature. You can survey just your A-list clients. And I always say A-list clients aren't necessarily the ones that are just like the higher income or higher revenue clients. They could be the people who light you up when you see them on the calendar, and ask them questions like, how often do you want to hear from me? What questions did you have when you initially wanted to work with me? Or what is still worrying you, even with an advisor? Like, what concerns do you still have about your money or your finances? What's coming up regularly? It could be something easy to answer, right? Like budgeting questions. It could be something like tax complexity or inheritance. You just won't know until you ask. And so that's kind of a good way to figure out, all right, this is my favorite group of clients or my whole list of clients. And these are the themes that I'm seeing again and again, whether or not they're coming up in meetings. Because sometimes people don't think about it in meetings, and that's a good way to kind of focus and force them to be intentional with their responses. And then finally, just figuring out, what are you passionate about? I've said for a long, long time that the best marketing topics come from the intersection of what you love to do and what your clients and prospects want to hear, right? It's like it's that perfect middle ground. And truth be told, if there's something that really lights you up in your firm, so I've talked to advisors where it's complex tax strategy, it's social security, it's Roth conversions. Like, and you know what, as a writer, those things I'm like, whew, that would not be a good day for me if I had to deal with that. But for them, like that's their favorite thing to talk to clients about. And so that's probably a pillar topic. If it's something that you're jazzed about, that energy is going to come through.
I love that you said that, Zoe, because it's so true.
Mhm.
That's one of
Mhm.
the things that we function off of at Redtail here is if we're excited about something, we are absolutely encouraged to talk about it.
Mhm.
And if anyone on this wonderful session today has been on a training with me, you know that I nerd out over things in the CRM all the time. And
Yes.
those
Mhm.
are the things that I'm most excited to teach about and talk about and write presentations for. So it's
Mhm.
100% true. And picking something you're excited about only makes it that much more meaningful and makes it that much better when you're done because it really does come through.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. And I think we've all been in a position where we've had to give a talk or something, write a blog post on a topic that you're like, okay, like, yeah, I guess like people want to hear about this, but like maybe, for example, I can do analytics, I understand analytics, I like to nerd out about it on the tech side of things, but like the setup and the block and tackle of it, I have team members who love to do that stuff, and that is where they shine. It is not where I shine. And so every time someone is like, tell me how to set this up to look fast, I'm like, I'm going to send you to Sarah because it's just not something that I love to do. But like pillar content topic and helping advisors save time and resources and energy to build a scalable marketing plan, who I could talk all day. And so that energy is going to
Yes.
come across in presentations and blog posts and video and whatever I'm creating. And so that's a good pillar topic to focus on.
Well, and maybe it's something you're going to cover in a minute or two because we just
Mhm.
tend to think similarly. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is something that's in a few slides. But I mean, that is also a good opportunity, like you said, to bring
Mhm.
someone else in, maybe bring a new perspective and write about something that you're
Very true.
not
Mhm.
super comfortable with, that you don't love, because having that different perspective is valuable. If everyone's always just hearing from one voice, that can
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
get stagnant and a little predictable. So I mean,
Mhm.
it's also an opportunity to potentially bring in another person who like bring in
Absolutely. And like
Sarah
to
to
get your
help.
team involved. Yep. Get your
Yeah.
team involved with, even if you have, so I find this a lot with bigger brands, right? So large firms with multiple offices or lots of firm members or lots of advisors, they may have, all right, these are our 5 pillar topics. These are the 5 core ideals that we function off of and that we cover in client meetings again and again. And maybe they write those topics, maybe they're long form blogs or ebooks that they use in their sales cycle. And we'll talk about kind of how to keep these, right? But then other advisors on the team can look at those. Let's say one of them is leaving a legacy, and maybe that advisor has a real big heart for like SRI and giving and QCDs and figuring out how to use donor advised funds. And like that's what they love, is helping to make an impact, right? Like with their clients' wealth. Maybe they take that retirement planning or whatever the core topic is and put their own spin on it in a quick video. And like that's a way that they can then expand and bring their own voice to the table too.
Yes. Oh, so creative. Because I do feel like sometimes we can get boxed in and think that we're alone
Hmm.
and think that
Oh, yeah.
all of the ideas have to come from us or all of the content has to come from our brains.
Hmm.
In reality, most firms and most people I work with don't write everything on their own. They're
Absolutely.
collaborating, they are working together, they're sharing
Mhm.
ideas. So it's definitely not a solo adventure. You should have people and others that you're bringing into that process too.
Yep, even if you have a full marketing team, like they can set up again the guardrails that they've set up with
Yeah.
compliance, or these are our 5 core topics, and then let advisors have some room to run, right? Like maybe they're providing the consistency, and advisors can do the icing on top, the blog post when they have time, or what have you. There's a lot of different ways to do that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
So I have a couple pillar topic examples that I wanted to cover. And they're not super exciting or anything, but I just wanted to kind of show you what this could look like in action. And then I will show you an example of it in real life with content that I have created for my business. So that you can see like the pillar and how it was repurposed. So a couple different ideas that we had, and my team and I kind of brainstormed. And these are real life examples that we have used with clients or with consulting clients. People have actually used these specific like pillar posts for their business. So blog, we see this a lot. You really want to be telling a story with your blog, right? So it's all written content, needs to have a through line. The number one example that my team came up with was having like a college bound family story, right? So from junior year of high school all the way through going to college, what's the process? Walk them through it. Is it we apply for financial aid. Here's how we fill out the FAFSA. Here's how we save money. Here's how we decide what college is the right fit from cost perspective or from a major perspective, all the way through to negotiating the amount of money that the college offered you, leveraging different offers against each other, walking them through it step by step into a long form blog post. And that's like the foundation of what you do for your college bound families, right? So that could be one example. For webinar or video, we had like a 60-minute live recorded webinar walking clients through how to determine their Social Security benefit or when to take it. And the client that did this, it was actually cool. They did almost like a choose your own adventure, right? Where they had like, okay, what happens if you're married, widowed, divorced, like, and had all these different like arms branch out. They had visual representations for it, case studies that they were able to write up, interjected with their thoughts and opinions and ideas on like the best way clients could go about it or what options they had available. And it was a long video because that's a lot of content to cover, but we didn't feel like it necessarily made sense as written content because it was so meaty and the client really wanted to cover things like case studies and fictionalized, options and ideas like that to kind of bring it to life. And video works really well for that. Podcast, we had a client recently do an FAQ podcast episode. So they had current clients and prospects. They took information from the survey they sent and we're like, okay, these are the 6 questions we're hearing the most or the 6 concerns our current clients are still having. Let's answer them. Like, let's just sit down. We're going to record a video podcast and knock it out. And that's going to be a pillar piece to answer all of these questions that we're hearing again and again. I want to say it was about their clients were tech employees. So it was about like layoffs and stock options, what to do if you get laid off, how to find the next position, things like that. So that was really great. And then another client who did an ebook, and we see this actually a lot, and I really like it as a strategy because ebooks, I feel like need to be really niche focused. They can be longer and about a more general topic, but then it gets hard to like, okay, who do I send it to if it just applies to everybody? Who's going to read the 3,000 plus word ebook? So you've got to have a target audience for that. And so we have found a lot of people come to us when they work with a specific employer. So I work with this energy company. I work with Coca-Cola employees. I work with Boeing executives, whatever it might be. And the ebook goes over benefits, pension, 401k options for those employees, other fringe benefits that they might need to consider, different like comparisons on a lot of times it's pension benefits, but it's trying to figure out, all right, like how should you take it? How is it structured? At what point in your career do you have access to stock options? And they're able to send that both as part of like maybe a lead generator, so a delivery to gather someone's email address, but then also as part of their prospect or sales funnel, they can say, hey, we work with clients just like you. Here you go. Like, here is everything that we know about your specific employer. And it just showcases expertise and solidifies that. So a couple examples of different types of pillar content you could have that really, again, goes deep and not wide. Like the goal is to try really hard and bring one very specific topic to life and make it really long so then you can break it up.
Well, that's a really good idea. Zoe, do you do that a lot with your clients? Do you like develop that kind of content with them?
We do, yep. And a lot of times it's very collaborative, right? And a lot of clients who are just consulting clients have done this internally too, is we kind of give them the structure and the idea, and they get into, a war room, or what do you want to call it, of a bunch of advisors who work with these employees, and like they knock it out together and they figure out what should be included, who's going to draft it, break up the different sections among their team, get some graphs or infographics involved as well, and then send it to a designer. And the end result, I think, is always like a really big, impactful piece for their business.
Oh, and do you see the popularity of that increasing, or has it always been pretty popular?
I would say just niche marketing in general has been a trendy topic for a while. And people serving a specific employer, or we see a lot like health systems, like you serve a health system in your area, people who work at the hospitals, whether it's physicians or admin or whatever. And we see a lot of like, I serve this college, right? So it might be different roles, but I work with people who teach at U of A, or, whatever the case may be. And that I find has gotten more popular for people to lean into a niche, even though it's been trendy for a while. I feel like it took some time to sort of catch on. And now it's good to have content that supports it.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And it isn't until this moment that I've realized that I'm absolutely a consumer of this kind of media, of this kind of content. And I imagine that people from my generation are probably pretty similar. So I absolutely could see if this is becoming more popular, because these are the kind of things that like I lean on when I'm picking a plan, or when I'm starting with an employer, or when I'm
Yep.
deciding where I want, or learning more about finance in general. I didn't even realize that my generation is one of the most encouraged to learn about finance,
Mhm.
but we know the least about finance. So we are
Yes.
really excited to
Mhm.
learn, but we know nothing.
Yes, and there's so much misinformation too, like
Yes.
between TikTok and financial people who don't have any expertise, like just on social media, kind of just letting people know what they've done that works for them. I feel like being able to go deep with specific topics, whether it's employer-driven content or niche-driven content, it really does solidify that expertise, right? And helps you rank up on things like SEO, just general know-how, all of that good stuff too.
No, that's perfect, Zoe. Excellent.
Awesome. And then this was just a quote I liked. I wanted to throw it in here because I feel like we're going to kind of get into some of the benefits of this and then also the questions I get from people. Marketing is telling the world you're a rock star and telling how awesome you are. Content marketing is showing them. So this kind of ties back to that expertise factor, right? Having this deep pillar content that's very intensive and really covers every question a client could have about a specific topic that's core to your firm is showing them that you're an expert. It's not necessarily spouting off on social, although we can talk about how to recycle content to be great on social. But I just think that it's really important to remember you're not bragging. You are very good at what you do. Content helps you show people, right? It just helps them know, hey, that person's really good at what they do. And that's not a problem in the
No.
marketing world.
If anything, it's probably a necessity because
Mhm.
all of the other firms are okay showing how great they are. You should
Yep.
definitely be okay showing how great you are, because it's just a matter of everyone
Absolutely.
being great at this point.
Yes, especially if you've got topics you're passionate about or
Yeah.
specific topics that you're covering with like niche clients. Yeah, show that off. Like not everyone is going to be able to answer those questions. So I feel like that's really important. And here, I think this is the number one benefit of pillar content, I guess, other than it reduces your time spent on how much content you're creating because you're creating less, just deeper. You get to actually create more and different types of content when you repurpose your pillars. So you're saying the same types of things. And then I have an example. We'll kind of get into, yeah, like how you can repurpose. But um, I like to use blogs, but you can talk about divvying up videos into different types of things or transcribing videos or podcasts to be written content. There's so much different types of content. And then you can delegate and outsource as well to create recycled content based on your pillar topics or ideas. And this is good for SEO, right? Like it creates campaigns. It's good so that people can start recognizing your brand and what you're an expert at in this space. Like you're really focusing in on exactly who you serve and what they want to hear. So when you create pillar content, again, for example, like I do written typically, that's kind of my bread and butter. We create so much different types of pillar content based on our written pillars that like is smaller and easy to repurpose and reshare again and again. So had a couple examples here. Think visual, right? So this could be infographics, social media posts. We've had clients take our blog posts that we've written for them and make slide deck presentations just like this one. This entire presentation came from a pillar content piece that I wrote last year. So the opportunities are endless. And the nice thing about visual content, it's easy to outsource and it's cheap, right? So you can find someone on Fiverr or a trusted designer you like who knows your brand. You can find your executive assistant might be really strong using Canva, things like that. And they can take a blog post and pull quotes, pull stats, do whatever to share out on social. And then from one piece, you've got 3 months of social content, right? And that's fantastic and easy to repurpose and low cost and low energy. So that's fantastic. We have the short form videos here that we talked about earlier. Again, highest ROI in marketing right now, especially for social media. I find that a lot of people will take things like written content or longer webinars and break them out to be smaller social videos. So that could be 3-minute video sessions or a series on, we'll take stock options, for example, because we have a lot of clients who do stock options. Maybe you have a really long piece about all the different types of stock options, how they're used, what people need to know about them, what the tax implications are. Then you do a video series where every different type of stock option between RSUs or ISOs or whatever, you have one video for each, right? 2 to 3 minutes each, just giving an overview of what they are and what the tax implications are. Right there, again, you've taken that one piece and used it to make 10 pieces of content. You only had to do the actual creation part once, because that blog post can be a script. It can be a bullet point for a script. It can be a great presentation, can be sent out to clients after the fact. you're just using it again and again in different ways. We also have email marketing here. So you can share your content out via email, which I think is like the traditional way, right? So newsletters, you link to your recent blog post. We do this too. Like there's nothing wrong with it if it works, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you can also break up a long pillar post or content or ebook and break it out into a lead nurture series. Maybe someone signs up to learn more about your services. They weren't ready to commit. So you take a pillar content on social security, retirement planning, break it up into sections and send it out over the course of 3 months. And all of a sudden you're staying in front of that prospect for much longer. So again, the creation part happened once. The time spent on repurposing has increased in order to get in front of more people, create different types of content, reach a broader audience, but you're only actually creating the topic or the ideas one time, which I find is the most time consuming component.
Ooh. I just love this idea of I don't even like calling it recycling because it doesn't even feel like recycling because it's new. It's just taking, a small idea from one thing you did and elaborating on it, or taking a bullet point from something that was a much larger idea and zeroing in on that granular idea. I think that's just, it's just such a nice way to take the pressure of how much content do I have to make this year? Oh, I've always got to think of the newest, greatest idea. I've got to watch the news like a crazy person to just pull what's happening next out of like trying to be trend predictors. Because I didn't even realize that's a whole other industry is predicting trends and what's going to happen next. And that's a whole other job skill that people are feeling like they have to take on in order to predict what kind of content their users need.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about your pillar posts is they're typically going to be evergreen, right? Like no one is writing a pillar post about the COVID-19, Secure Act or whatever. Like that's not a pillar post because it's not a core element of your business. And so when you're creating both the pillar and these repurposed new but smaller pieces, you can reuse them again and again. They don't die on the vine. They're still core elements of what your clients want to hear, what your prospects need to hear, what your level of expertise is. So you're creating stuff that's going to last like in perpetuity, right? And I think I always liken like SEO to investing, right? So it's like compound interest, like you're saving. So if you write a blog post or a pillar content piece, sure, like it might take off right away. You might get some views and clicks because you're sharing it, but it doesn't go away. So like it continues to drive traffic to your website. All of the repurposed content you create continues to drive traffic and solidify that expertise. I just think that it has compound benefits over time.
Absolutely. Now, I do have a challenge for you. If now's a good time, because I do have a good question in our chat.
Yeah, let's do it.
What if your primary audience does not use technology?
Okay, so like if you have maybe retirees or someone who, I know, I'm trying to think like off the grid type of folks or, what have you. I think a couple different options here. So we have had clients create pillar content successfully in a newsletter, right? That they are mailing physically to their clients. And it almost looks like, I'm trying to think like a good proxy. I don't receive very many of them just because it's not probably my demographic, but they're like longer, they kind of look like flyers. They're like folded up like a brochure, but it's like a beefy newsletter. And it includes things like articles about SRI, what's going on with their different team members. It has like a full year wrap up at the end of the year. They only send it quarterly because it's a huge effort to put it together. But I do find that like you can still include pillar content in that. Like you can send it out to people and have it sit and have them read through things almost like a newspaper, right? Like that you would be sending to somebody if they're not using technology. Something else we've talked to clients about, because we do have some clients who work with retirees who, if they're like 80 and 90, they don't always pay attention to like virtual webinars and things like that. So those might be good prospecting tools, but less good client nurture tools. Talking to them about these things in client meetings and sending it to them after the fact. So again, maybe the ebook is the option for you. If you have clients or prospects who aren't really using tech, and so you're sitting physically across the desk from them, having a printed branded ebook about, hey, you work for, my husband works for JB Hunt. You work for JB Hunt. Here's an ebook about your employee benefits and like why we're an expert in that space and what you need to know. There you go. Like send them away with it. Even if it's free information, it just solidifies your expertise in the space. So tailoring your pillar content to the types of conversations you're having with clients and prospects, and then figuring out how to repurpose from there, I think that makes sense too, because that could still be, you might be trying to generate leads online, but you have the printed ebook for people who aren't tech savvy. I think that's totally okay to tailor your strategy to that.
Absolutely. Because I know that that's kind of a challenge. I feel like we have
Yes.
switched over as a society to,
hmm
environmentally friendly. We want to have quick information, things. I personally, since switching over to computers, I used to be a paper person. It is nice to know that I can't lose something in my computer. Like it's there.
Yes.
But at the same time, if you are from a generation that absolutely prefers paper or doesn't want to take the time to learn electronics, like, yeah, maybe I'm thinking this generation definitely will read books. They'll read the things you send them as opposed to
Yeah,
me. I want a
absolutely.
3-minute video that I can watch while I'm like in line at the
Sure.
grocery store.
Yes, and we have several clients who, they have a radio show, right? Like, so maybe their pillar content isn't a podcast. They are physically on air doing a radio show weekly,
So
and their
cool.
listeners tune in. Like, and then they take that radio show content and they've turned it into
Yeah.
books that they use in their prospecting sequence. Or you can again repurpose, just try to think outside of the box. Where are your clients, your A-listers actually showing up? Where are they paying attention? Is it in-person events where you need to be doing a presentation, like live? Is it that book? Is it that PDF? Is it a radio show they can tune into? Where are they and how can you meet them where they're at?
That's a great way to put it too. Meet them where they're at, because
Mhm.
that's ultimately what your job is to connect
Yep,
with your clients.
absolutely, totally. Is that the challenge that you had?
That was the challenge. I was looking
Okay.
at the question and I was like, letter. But Zoe, that's a great point. It makes me sad the magazine industry is kind of dead, because I
I
personally
know.
love magazines, and I think
I did
magazines
too.
are a great little periodical that's not quite a
Mhm,
book, so you don't have to fully commit to it.
mhm.
But it's a great way to get information. And that was the first thing that popped into my head was like,
And
ooh,
honestly, I mean, that I guess like that newsletter I was talking about that a client did, a magazine or like a zine, like a little periodical, that's a good way to
yeah,
liken it, right? Like it's not a full book, not really like a brochure. It's beefier than that. It has articles from their different advisor teams. And there are plenty of companies out there who still do printing. Like you just have to find one that's local to you. Most of them are also willing to ship it to your clients. So like that's off your plate. Like you just input their addresses and you're good to go.
oh, it's perfect.
Good info to have. So this is what pillar content looks like in action. I kind of wanted to show you just from my perspective, from our business, what are we doing? So again, I'm a creative writing background. Writing is my bread and butter. I have tried podcasting, and I always like to tell this story so that if you try something and don't like it, it's okay, right? Like it's okay to fail and fail big. I had a podcast years ago. I did 3 episodes, quit. I was like, I hate this. This isn't for me. I had like other interviews lined up, and I ended up canceling. It made me so nervous, like my palms would sweat. I couldn't do it. And now, knowing what I know, because I didn't know then, right? I was still relatively new to podcasting. That was an interesting idea. I was over creating. I was doing an episode a week of brand new, fresh content that I didn't know. I was running out of ideas. I was monologuing to the mic. I felt stressed that I had to create new content all the time, different ideas to keep people interested. I was exhausted. I burnt myself out on the podcast. But what we're doing now with this pillar content, I have written 1 new piece this year. And as a marketer, that is shocking, right? I used to do 4 blog posts a month plus the podcast. I've actually written 1 new piece of content. But we're going to talk about like where this presentation came from. I wrote a pillar piece last September after we went to the Digital Marketing Summit in Seattle, which is like a marketing conference for continuing ed. My whole team went. I did a write-up of the piece. It's super beefy. You're welcome to find it on the website. And then from that piece, I wrote the 1 new piece I've written this year, which was an article for NAPA Advisor magazine in March that got released. And it was not a pillar piece, it was shorter, but again, took it from the concepts in the pillar piece and created that. I've created multiple content marketing minutes, which are little like 1 to 3 minute videos that we do and load to social and onto YouTube. Then I've taken the core concepts in that pillar piece. I've created this presentation. I have another presentation tomorrow I created with that deck, another one in May. And then I also have used the core concepts in that pillar piece to do interviews for other podcasts. So again, I'm repeating myself a lot. Where like it's the same types
Yeah.
of concepts that are in that pillar piece, but it's also easier because it's more scalable. I know what I'm talking about. I've been talking about the same thing for 4 months, right? But it's something I'm passionate about, and I can talk about it in different ways, shake it up, mix it up, and make sure people are getting the message, meeting them where they're at, where they're comfortable.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. And look at how much you got out of it. Look at all these
Yes,
different
I've
things.
one long pillar piece, and admittedly, that piece was long, and it took me a long time to do the write-up, but I've been able to get so much mileage out of it after the fact that these shorter pieces take me no time because I already have my talking points. I'm ready to go. I can delegate it to my team. This isn't even counting like we had Sarah, who's my executive assistant operations person. She's really strong in Canva. She made an infographic. I've made social media posts. Just the opportunities are truly endless when you have that core pillar piece that you can repurpose.
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah, so just a quick example. I always like to try and showcase that because I get that question a lot of like, what's that actually look like? Like when you actually show up and do it, what are you doing? How are you repurposing? What is it in real life? So that's the real life example. And then this is kind of like next level, right? So you're doing the pillar content, you're doing the repurposing, and this kind of ties back into your team and getting everybody involved. Keep a content bank. So get a Google Doc, get a spreadsheet going, keep it in Dropbox, whatever your whole team has access to, and link these are our pillar pieces, right? So for the year or for the next 2 years or whatever your timeline is, these are the 5. These are all the different ways they've been repurposed. So that could be infographics, ebooks, however you're repurposing them in your firm. It makes it easier both for yourself if you're a solo or for your team if you have multiple advisors to go in and quickly reshare. Like I've got a prospect call who had this specific question. I know that's a pillar piece. Don't want to send me the full blog. Oh, look, advisor so-and-so made an infographic last year. I'll shoot that their way, right? And you can repurpose it within your firm and reuse it to, again, make sure it's not dying on the vine. You're getting more mileage out of that content.
absolutely.
So this is something that we've just started implementing internally for our team. Again, Sarah's fabulous and she's implementing it. And it has changed the game because we can all share stuff so much more easily. And we have such a wealth of content, and most advisors do because most of them are over creating. Keep that content and figure out, right, how can we reuse this in a different way? Can I send that to a client who had a question? Should it be sent in the automation email that follows up with prospects when they book in Calendly? Like, where can you plug that stuff in your funnel so that you're using it again and again? And this is the number one question I get about this specific topic, right? Like, won't people get sick of hearing this? Like, my example, okay, so you wrote that piece in September and you're just like hammering it home for all of Q1 and Q4. Yep. And frankly, the truth is they won't get sick of hearing it because all it does is solidify your brand recognition. I talked to Matt Halloran from Proudmouth and from Top Advisor Marketing Podcast last week about this. And he had such a good analogy. I will totally credit him because it's not mine. But he said, when you hear your favorite song on the radio, do you skip it? And you're like, I've heard that too many times. I'm done. Like, no, you sing along. And it's because repetition is good. Humans like it. It helps us feel seen, heard, emotionally seen, so many different things. And so when you're answering these key pain point questions that are critical to your firm's success again and again, all you're doing is making people feel seen and heard. So that's kind of dispelling that concern or fear. And then I just wanted to leave some time with questions. I feel like I've been rambling, but I'm very passionate about this topic. So if you guys have questions, please let me know. Happy to answer them. We can open it up or whatever you want to do.
Well, Miss Zoe, I do have one question in our chat because I know we only have a couple minutes left. But I do want to say you were not rambling by any means. This was incredibly useful. This is a topic that's a little outside the CRM. And if anything, I think this is the kind of content that these sessions are designed for. Because to have an expert come in and share this kind of information is incredibly invaluable. So thank you so much.
Oh, good. And thank you for having me. This has been a ton of fun.
Anytime. This was, like I said, marketing is something we didn't think we needed to go to school for. And now we live in a world where we are marketing ourselves every day. My dad
Oh
used
my
to
goodness.
say,
Yes.
you sell yourself all the time because you are constantly selling people and who you are. But marketing is slightly different. And we've created a society where you not only sell yourself every day anymore, you market yourself every day.
Yes, it doesn't matter if you're an employee or if you are just a career person, like you're marketing 24/7. You have a digital footprint, you have a brand, like might as well own it, right? Like might as well figure out what that is.
Even if you don't think you're on the internet, you're on the internet. I promise.
On the internet. Yeah.
But we did have one last thing I wanted to circle back to before. If we do have any questions, please feel free to plug them in either to the QA or to the chat. If you wanted to comment on something, that's also totally fine. If you're watching this in the recording, I'm so sorry. Don't try to type anywhere because it's not going to go anywhere. But you can definitely reach out to Zoe.
email me. Yeah.
Zoe, I'm so sorry. Do you have your your
I
email?
do. Oh, I realized after the fact I didn't put it on the slide. But it is just Zoe at perfectlyplannedcontent.com. You can also schedule a call with me directly at like our website, which I linked there. We use Calendly. And then I had more information too about our stuff, but you asked the question. Go ahead.
Yes. So just circling back to that compliance kind of question we had
Mhm.
before. One of the questions was about how compliance can definitely be tough on polls. Is there any advice other than working with compliance to develop those polls that you would want to share, just
Mm,
or maybe past experience you've had or working with other firms developing them?
It can be tricky, and some compliances are harder than others. But like I said, some clients are very lax and are like, do whatever, like we'll deal with it later. Like, and that's okay. I just think that different approaches. If you find like you're just not getting anywhere with a specific idea, I say like put it back in their court. Be like, okay, that's okay. You don't want me to do this specific thing. A poll, we've had some client compliance say like you can't go live on social media. Like I need to see the script before you record.
Sure.
Like say like, okay, that's fine. What can I do? Like put it back on them. So I want to survey my clients. I want to have a social media poll. How can I engage in a way that is compliant or okay? Because realistically, if their job is to support you, they should be willing to partake in that conversation, right? Like they shouldn't be just like, no, door slam. Like their job is to collaborate. So pushing back gently, because I feel like sometimes they don't get that question, that is useful. That's useful to do, right? So it's sitting down and saying, okay, I can't do a poll. I can't do a client survey, or you want me to do this in a specific way. Um, Often it's, do you just need to see it in advance? Do we need to have the results that aren't published so that they're not like live to the world? Um, a good example that I just kind of touched on was a client really wanted to do Facebook Lives. Their compliance was like, no, not going to happen. Like, I don't feel comfortable with that. So the solution we came to was, all right, we will do pre-recorded video. We're going to market it as an e-course where we send out the videos after someone signs up on their email list. It's not going to drive traffic in the way we'd initially intended, but we can run an ad because that's compliant around it to drive the traffic we need. So like there was a workaround. They needed to see the script and the recording, but like we had to really collaborate with them to get there.
No, that's a good way to put it too, because it can be difficult sometimes.
Yes, and everyone knows that can be frustrating. I love our compliance people. We work with some phenomenal compliance attorneys and officers. But when you have the creative idea and you just want to run, it's frustrating to feel like someone's like tamping out your flame, right? But realizing that like, okay, like they're here to help. I just need to utilize them as a resource too. And I guarantee they've got resources for you.
Absolutely. Last question before we close out for the day, everyone. So Kimberly, since you put in Kimberly, I'm going to put Kimberly. Hopefully one day we'll be friends. But Kimberly, I love that you commented back to us, because I know that having that struggle with most of your clients not being technologically savvy, or even they're just less likely to use technology. So Kim did put back in our chat that most of their clients are not local. So like getting them some reader could be a little challenging. I'm actually going to make a suggestion that's a little out there. I'm going to call it our old-fashioned business practices, but this might be a good opportunity to use like the old-timey loyalty practices that we actually advocate in Redtail, like sending them a gift basket and with the literature in it. So then it's like, hey, thank you for being our client. Also, here's some literature for you. Older fashioned things, because I feel like that used to be really common like 5 or 10 years ago. And since we've switched over to social media and electronic kind of disbursement of information, it's gotten more challenging, but that might be something that your demographic appreciates too. So
absolutely, yes. And you can include, even if you don't want to do a full-blown like zine or newsletter or whatever, like you can write a thank you letter, article, whatever, a pillar piece, right, that associate or resonates with your client base, include it in the basket. Like that's easy enough to do as well. And then you can break that out to be different things that you're using internally, right? So lots of different options there.
Oh, and I even think you could use it as a way for connection, like theme it and say like, enjoy your cocktail while you read about retirement.
Oh yeah,
way to time
absolutely
together.
Yes.
Or
I love that.
Enjoy your snack while you snack
yes,
on your RMD that you have to take out. No, like
I liked it. I like where you were going with it.
But these are very quick ideas, but I do want to say thank you all so much for joining us today. Zoe, thank you again for being on. I do want to emphasize to you all, Zoe has offered a 10% discount to anyone who has attended this webinar today for your first 12 months of using Perfectly Planned Content. So please feel free to reach out to her. She's awesome. And we hope to see her again soon. So thank you all again for joining us. And please tune in next time. And we'll see you all again really soon. Bye.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Zoe. And thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.